Richard Meier, renowned architect, is also considered a designer and artist. Richard Meier began his career by designing houses. By the 1970s, however, Meier was commissioned to design 3 museums, including the Museum for Decorative Art. Meier's design for the Museum for Decorative Art was the winning design for an international competition. The competition was conducted in Frankfurt in the Federal Republic of Germany in 1979 and held in response to an extensive building program along the southern bank of the Main. It was completed in 1985. Meier's building is meant to be an extension of an older 19th century palazzo called the Via Metzler. The Via Metzler had previously been a storage place for Frankfurt's decorative art. The palazzo had, however, become overcrowded and inadequate for the plethora of collections. Meier's design was chosen because of his integration of the existing palazzo into his plan. The other competitors, in comparison, treated them as separate entities. To incorporate the Via Metzler into the new design, the Museum of Decorative Art repeats the Via Metzler's dimensions. The width and height become the basis for the exterior dimensions of each quadrant, while its elevational dimensions become the source of the width and height of the metal panel grid. In addition to the application of these dimensions into the new building, the proportions of the Via Metzler's windows are used to create the windows in the Museum of Decorative Art. The grid and access that align with major pedestrian paths, property lines, and existing frontages help create the layout of the park. The pathway and other areas are also based on the River Main, which is overlooked by the museum. Though the dimension and layout of the architecture was meant to combine the two buildings, the material with which the Museum of Decorative Art was made contrasts the original palazzo. The palazzo was made of stone and stucco. Meier's building, in turn, is dressed with bright white walls, either in plaster or white porcelain steel. Set in a gridded design that frames glass squares, the appearance of both is a testimony of the contrast between present and past. Internally, the most important aspect of Meier's architecture in the Museum of Decorative Art is the circulation. The architecture persuades the visitor to travel through the museum in a way that allows viewing of all the collections as well as the park, city, via, and the actual building itself. The visitor first enters through the ground level, where the temporary exhibitions can be viewed. A series of ramps invites the visitor to venture into the permanent exhibitions that are kept in the upper floors. Here, the architecture allows the visitor to explore the exhibits chronologically, enabling them to trace stylistic and formal developments through the ages. The architecture frames the exhibits in multiple ways, allowing for the possibility of discovery and surprise as one views objects through different apertures, but at the same time always deferring to the objects themselves, permitting them to create their own environments and not overwhelming them.